All right, perfect.
Yeah.
So, what's your background? What subjects did you take up in your schooling, graduation, and further studies?
All right. So basically, for my schooling, it's a long time back. So I had PCMB, and I offered sciences as in my 11th and 12th grade. I of course ended up doing what do you say biomedical engineering after that, post that, and there was no CET during that time. I was the first year for the medical aspirant CET, which is equivalent to the NEET today. Since I pursued biomedical engineering, I gave the GRE and then I pursued my master's. So in biomedical engineering, just a very brief touch up subjects like biomaterials, biomechanics, a lot of microprocessors, controllers, a lot of maths. I mean, there is a mix of engineering, human anatomy, mix of subjects which we had to take. And then I went to change a little bit of gears to go towards biotech, which is more of a pharma or a much larger field than biomed as a field. And there, for my master's, I took subjects such as, biochemistry, immunology, molecular biology, recombinant DNA, and then that's about it in terms of coursework. I also did a couple of courses from Harvard and Johns Hopkins where I've done course certifications in biotech enterprises, marketing. So I kind of tried to cover the biotech sector as much as I could.
Okay, that is great.
Yeah.
So, what are the job opportunities one can do after pursuing a degree in biomedical engineering?
All right. So when you do biomedical engineering, a lot of people in India have this, it's a very limited view, let me put it that way. So I'll explain quickly that there are a lot of branches of biomedical engineering which are at literally the pioneer of research. One of them being cellular and tissue engineering, things which you hear from scaffolds, where they make skin grafts, that involves a lot of biomedical engineering. Biomechanics being the second one, where, so for example, your spine is hurt and they make an instrument to help you correct vertebrae disorders. That's kind of, or an orthopedic kind of view, where they make you legs or machines to help you correct bone disorders. That is what biomechanics involves. There is medical imaging. That means, when you do an MRI or a CT, but beyond that too, analyzing fluorescent data, dye data, imaging has progressed a lot over the last 20 years, and all kinds of imaging, whether it's flute or flumes. There are tons of different type of luminescent technologies which are used, are a part of medical imaging. The newest branch, of course, being computational mechanics, or computational bio engineering, is basically using a lot of computer powered data to analyze scaffolds, analyze different materials, making artificial valves. So these are, and that involves the use of biomaterials, which is again a separate field by itself. So these are the various fields of biomedical engineering in which you can work. Unfortunately, in India, it's a very, it's considered one branch of biomedical engineering is a medical engineering technician job, and that's kind of seems to be the job portfolio which has been existing for years. But nowadays, a lot of companies in India have opened up a lot of avenues to pursue the different fields of biomedical engineering.
Okay, wow, that's nice. So you've done your bachelor's degree from Mumbai itself, and then for your PG you went to the US. So what did you enjoy the most when you were pursuing your degree in Mumbai, and then how was it contrary to what you did over there in your PG?
All right. So my story is pretty interesting in terms of I wanted to pursue medicine, and I'm sure a lot of you want to, to maybe basically the end goal being, help out. Since it was my first year of CT and, it was pretty messed up, the admissions had got postponed, and there are several rounds in October. But I was lucky that there was no engineering CT, which is, equivalent to the JEE as of today. And, since I had good grades in maths, I could secure admission in biomedical engineering. Now, the only reason to secure admission in biomedical engineering was because bio was somehow involved, even if there was the engineering component, at least there was some biology. And by the time I got through my rounds, it was almost November or December when I got admission in medicine, and I just decided to decline it. because it was too late. I would be late by like another 6 months, and so that's how I came out to end up doing biomedical engineering. There are, I'm actually really happy the way it happened, because I believe as an engineer, certain things which are taught to you, maybe analytical abilities, critical thinking, or problem solving have been a bit of a core, a bit of a challenge to, they've helped you address challenges which I faced while deciding what masters to do, So when I pursued my masters in biotech, I decided to shift gears because I was, very unhappy with the limited scope of biomedical engineering, which I had witnessed in the curriculum. And I'm sure it is improvised over time. I passed out about 15 years back from biomedical engineering. And I believe now there is a field called biotech engineering too, which has a lot of chemistry and biotech together. There's bioengineering too. So which are great, because they give you more options to select what you really like. And I shifted gears to biotech, by reading and stuff. And I don't think there were many people, who would guide you to exactly what should you do. And studying subjects like molecular biology, genetics, and all is where I felt that I missed out studying those. I probably, if I had offered a bachelor's in science, that means a BSc equivalent out here, would have been great enough too. Studying those subjects is where I literally feel that the connection between, understanding underlying biology. So helping patients from the other spectrum of the end, not on the patient. So you're not reaching out to patients one by one. But if you're doing research which goes on to make a drug, or, is at least helping towards make a drug better with efficacy or research, then you're still reaching out to millions of patients. So maybe that's, one way to look at it.
Of course. Okay. So, how do you think STEM will progress in the coming years?
So I'm glad you asked that question, because today, if you see the world which is, in and around you, I believe that you can understand that it's a very data-centric or a data-driven world as of today. There is a lot of computational power used in everything you see today. It doesn't matter what you use, whether you use social media, there is analytics, as in people read the KPIs and, how you try to increase followers. So companies target to see whom you should target and where you should get most followers, and then how do they use this data to better their product or better their service, right? So anything from as small as social media to anything as big as business analytics, or anything as big as 3D printing, wearable technology, machine learning, artificial intelligence, all of these are computationally driven innovations. So if you're talking about innovations in the 21st century, of course, with the pandemic, you can imagine how pharma is throwing out, at best, which vaccination is going to win. In that also, they are using computational models to figure out how they can beat the game, So I believe that innovation is definitely going to play, innovation in the next, coming 25 years is going to play a big role. STEM is going to play a big role in it, and computational is going to be one of the necessary skills. So I would recommend, my recommendation is always find a concentration, so if you like bio, try to find out what subject you wish to study in that, and then go backwards. That means figure out that where I see myself within 5 years. It doesn't have to be an exact career, something like I would love to work in a fancy office, I want to make a lot of money, or I want to work in research, I want to work in a lab, or I see myself playing with instruments. So it could be any of those, and then try to walk it backwards and figure out what kind of STEM career would help you into this.
Okay, all right. So we are so glad that we have someone like you who just explained, when I asked you one of the questions, that what exactly biomedical engineering entails, what are the things that are there in it. But when you yourself were in the 12th grade, how did you decide that studying biomedical engineering was the right choice for you?
So as I mentioned to you, that medical was my first choice. And though what happened is I reached out to quite a few people, because biomedical engineering was offered, and, it was an engineering discipline. Since generally in India, we see that there are two branches in science which are offered largely. Sadly, it's like engineering and medicine, and there is no path in between. And we kind of look down on the bachelors of science, which I believe is a mistake entirely too. The BSc which are offered with either life sciences or any of the informatics, bioinformatics, or say a biotech, a BSc in biotech, or BSc in biological sciences, or BSc in microbiology, or any of the biofields. I feel that we overlook the importance of pure sciences. So when I was deciding, I really wanted to do medicine and something to do with biology or human anatomy and connecting with this. Biomedical engineering at least provided 50% gateway there. So we had to do human cadaver dissection, and we had to visit a lot of hospitals to figure out instrumentation. Even though it borders a lot more on instrumentation, it has a lot to learn with skin grafts and biomaterials. So at least that was a mix which is available to you. I understand that it's not available to a lot of, since the entrance exams are a hurdle as of today, because there are multiple entrance exams. But I would say, if you're a medical aspirant, like, I was day and way back, and if you still can't get through it, then doing a pure science degree, like a bachelor's in science, instead of just giving it up, would be a better choice. So I stumbled onto biomedical engineering, which has a lot of innovation, which opened a huge field of biotech and research in front of me. So just reading about it and knowing what are your options beforehand, since nowadays there is so much data available to you via net, or through counselors, through so many portals, that finding out that if you don't make it, make a plan ABC and figure out which are the options available to you with whatever subject combination you have taken.
All right, perfect. So this will be my last question. So the people who have come here to listen to ma'am and have any questions, you guys can tag down your questions in the chat box, or you could raise your hand and ask them once ma'am is finished answering this last question. So is there any final piece of advice you would like to give us budding girls in STEM?
Yes, absolutely. So my first piece of advice is, I know that a lot of you are science aspirants, and it's easier to at least pursue some STEM career. But a lot of times we forget that STEM involves maths as the last component, which is available to probably most of the aspirants, doesn't matter what kind of course you do. And what I would like you to understand about that is that doing a career in analytics, as I mentioned, a master's in finance, or supply chain, or marketing analytics, or supply chain management, operations management, all is under the STEM umbrella. So it doesn't matter even if you're from the science, from a science background or a commerce background, getting to this STEM degree is not that hard. It does give you scope to go ahead in management. It gives you a scope to specialize in a choice which you want to. So doesn't mean that, okay, if you've taken the science is great, but if you haven't, you can always figure out from your choices what else can you do and make it STEM. If you wish to, if you like it, that is definitely there. Also, there's one thing which I'd like to share. It's a short story about Madame Curie, and everyone knows, she discovered the uranium and polonium, and that with the help of her doctor, with the help of her husband, Dr. Perry, and she got the Nobel Prize for Physics and Chemistry. But the story about her, when she was studying in Poland, there was no higher education in Poland for girls pursuing sciences. So she worked as a governess or a teacher, and earned money for her sister, her younger sister, to go and study in France. And then eventually she herself moved to France to study, and get her doctorate in physics. So the point is, don't use, it was a long time back, it was a different world. So don't use that, hopefully you can find inspiration from a person like her, and definitely do what you need to do to break any barriers or break obstacles, or break into a male dominated subfield. Should not be scared, because there are resources available. And if you're pursuing your STEM education, I believe it will get you there, into any of the fields which you aspire to.
Okay, perfect. So people wishing to ask questions, you can raise your hand and then I can recognize you and you can unmute yourselves and ask a question. Okay, Alize Zehra has asked a question. You can unmute yourself. Go ahead.
When you get your degree, do you get, like, for bachelor's, do you get a bachelor's of science or a bachelor's in engineering?
So I got a bachelor's. So in US, it's called Bachelor of Engineering in Biomedical Engineering. It's a BE. It's equivalent to a BS in biomedical engineering.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. If anybody else has a question, they can again raise their hand or they can type it out in the chat box.
So, if there are no questions, Amanshi, I do like to share one thing which I learned, when I pursued my master's in biotech.
Yes,
And a
please
lot
go
of,
ahead.
I see, of a lot of our, a lot of people who have tapped in are, of course, pursuing the Indian boards or, are studying in the Indian education system. When I went there to study my master's in biotech at UMass, I was given, it's a really interesting incident and you might appreciate it. Being into this field, that I was, attempting my first paper, which was for the subject of immunology, and it was a 100 marks paper. And when I got my paper back, she put a -5 on the scores. And when I went to ask her, she said, "You've written too much." So I didn't understand what that meant. I filled up like 5 pages, and she's like, I'm the teacher. I'm pretty much aware of what is, for example, if she's asked what is B, she's like, I know what is B. You just need to tell me what is B. You don't need to write what is A and C. And she showed me a model answer paper. She put it up on the group too, which was for 100 marks. It was two pages, literally like 1 and 2. And that was a 100-mark paper which I attempted. And I think that's the kind of so it didn't matter that whether you can write a lot or what you knew back and forth, but as long as the question was directed which you could answer exactly is what mattered. So all the questions which were asked were pretty much to the point where if you had written the word which she's looking for, a line which you're looking for, is what mattered to her, because it made the professor understand that you've understood what she's asked. So the kind of education you're looking for, try to figure out what you really want to do. I'm an overseas education counselor at Knowell Consultancy, and that's what I do. The point is we have a very young, challenging, partners and teams, and the whole point is to help students to figure out how to be able to get there, instead of I understand a lot of you are stuck in the kind of education or stuff, but a more flexible, a more applied science, a more lab science kind of education, try and get the real root of the problem out of that. And I believe that, you can really do really well in these subjects.
Okay, that was a really insightful story.
Yes.
Okay, there are 2 questions. So Meghna Ved has asked, what's the scope of biomedical engineering today?
So I believe biomedical engineering has a lot of scope, Meghna. It's just that from beforehand, instead being, because a lot of biomedical engineering people who pass out in India, especially across Mumbai, they have a very hospital-oriented job. But just to let you know, there is a lot of jobs outside the hospital arena, outside of MRI and CT. I would recommend, like, say, for example, a company like Medtronics does so much research in biotech, may not, they may not be carrying out their research in Mumbai, or, a lot of them is situated in Bangalore, but there is a lot of research going on in biomaterials, biomechanics, as I mentioned, or computational biomechanics. I would recommend that you go through, those fields of biomedical engineering and figure out which one you want to work on before graduating and just getting stuck in a job which is more, like a hospital, or more of a medical engineering technician.
Okay, great. So Alize has a question. What's the difference between biomedical engineering and biotech?
Okay, I'm so glad you asked that question. So, biomedical engineering basically is a mix between finding, as I mentioned, that if your spine is not working, you make an instrument to help correct, where you need to understand the underlying biology and, of course, need to have some knowledge about electronics or mechanics so that you can help devise such a device. Is one of the jobs of biomedical engineering. Okay, tissue engineering, where you make scaffolds for people. Artificial valves is what biomedical applications imply. While biotech, if you step back, is a much, much larger, a much greater field, much bigger scaled field. Not put it to biotech, you can even call it biological sciences, you can call it, pharmaceutical sciences. So something which involves making a drug. So say from drug I meant is medicine, making it from formulations, that means being in the formulation where you try different compounds and make it, all the way of developing drugs. So it can be in the factor of genetics, where a lot of you may have heard that sequencing has become really cheap and human sequencing is a very big deal. So that's the kind of research I worked in at Sanofi. So then sequencing is a field as in so molecular biology forms a stem, then there is cellular biology, there is biochemistry, there is immunology, there are maybe the subsections leads to hundreds of these things. Where do these people work in? Primarily in pharma research or pharma industry or in academic research. There is a lot of scope. There is a lot of as I mentioned, patient data. One of the most upcoming fields is public health informatics. You can see that you have epidemic at this, and people are scrambling to get data and hire epidemiologists. So a master's in public health or a master's in public informatics are one of the two top fields which are being pursued heavily. Also, if you I just saw the Netflix documentary by Bill Gates, which talks about how you can how can you predict the next pandemic, or which area will be needing, and why bio and biopharmaceuticals is going to play such a big role in the next 50 years. So maybe pursuing a career in that might be should at least be in your list for sure.
Of course. Okay, so the next question is from Parishi. What is the basic qualification needed for registering for STEM, and guidance on process of admission?
So STEM where? As in STEM is not a course by itself, right? STEM stands for science, technology, engineering, math. So how basically, if you're asking me how to make a STEM career, then taking, if you're talking about the Indian context, then taking science subjects is would be the best combination to have till 12th grade to pursue any STEM career. So having either physics, chemistry, biology, any two of the sciences. Maths, I would strongly recommend have maths. Even if you don't like it, do it as a subject, because maths is somehow forming to be the basis of everything in terms of algorithms, in terms of understanding statistics, in terms of it being used, not in terms of solving trigonometry or integration or derivatives, but you will be able to use definite analytical skills to use computational power, which is required in every biofield today.
Okay, perfect. So the next question is from Kritika. What would you advise students who are not 100% sure of what to do next, like in higher studies?
Yes. So if you're not sure, right? I mean, and if you, of course, if you have the aptitude or if you have the inclination, I would say go with the sciences till 12th. And then figure out all your choices which you have, because at least it'll keep all your options open, to you. That means if you wish to pursue a career in finance, you can definitely move out and do it. If you wish to pursue career, if you wish to career, the point is for you to maybe go to a counselor, maybe do it on your own, figure out what kind of fields exist. Say in commerce, there are so many degrees offered today. There is BMM and there is BMS and BBA, and then arts also has so many of different careers. Liberal arts studies is a very big deal today, and in sciences, what is available to you, and then from there start narrowing that. Okay, I absolutely don't like this, but just because you hate subject, we've seen that multiple times, in Knowell, that oh, I hate math, so I don't want to do anything with it. It's fine, no matter what degree you do, you're going to always not like one or so subject. So don't think from it, if you like marketing as a career, then explore that. and what kind of degrees are available to you. So go backwards, and then it'll help you at least narrow down your choice. Read more, maybe connect to more people, so you have an idea of what they actually end up doing to select a career.
Yes. Okay. Perfect.
Yeah.
So Afra has another question. Aside from hospitals, what other work fields are available in biomedical engineering?
So that's what I mentioned, right? Working in a biomaterial kind of industry. So let me give you an example. For example, working with dyes. So do you know when they want to do your angiography, they insert a dye within you. So working with materials which are made from the dye. So there are a lot of biomaterial companies existing in India and abroad, of course. Working in any, if that's of your interest, biomaterials, or basically understanding how materials are made, how polymers are made, and how they can be used in in the human body, is one side in companies like those. You can definitely work in the pharma industry, because a lot of pharma companies have a biomedical research institute within them, where they address scaffold or tissue engineering, or of course you've heard of stem cells. Okay, so stem cell crosses over to tissue engineering a lot, and biomedical engineering, or working in biomechanics if you're interested in the orthopedic of it, so working in a field which makes say wearable orthopedics, people who have what do you say, disabilities, and helping them make a kneecap. So that's also one of the industries you can work in.
Okay, great. So I have a question. So how was
Sure.
your experience at Sanofi? Because I know a lot of people that are interested in research particularly.
Yes.
And sometimes I feel like although a lot of us at this age don't have the exposure to research, we are somehow so hell-bent upon, going to a research-based university, or say,
so actually the research. Sure. So the research which is carried on is not, a lot of people think, oh, you'll be deep into books, and, that image is there that nobody's going to hire you after you do research. Actually, it's pretty much like working in a regular company. Okay. All you have is, you have a computer desk and you have a lab. You do experiments, you analyze the data, and you give it. A lot of, since I was working in the field of genetics and genomics, a lot of my work was about 70%, I would say, was on the computer. Okay, and 30% in the lab. So basically, isolating RNA, it's not a big deal, it's a kit. You follow the procedure, you get the data, and you just use the points. But my job was to identify the underlying biology of the data. So I had to use a lot of softwares, a lot of computational power to figure out. So, there are softwares, a lot of softwares which help you analyze the biology behind it. So that's what I was actually doing, say a disease sample versus a normal sample. So research is fantastic, and it doesn't mean that it's not going to get you a job into management. I have so many of my friends or colleagues who have moved, from research, a few years of experience, and moved towards a more management tech side of things. And it'll be very satisfying. You get to do a lot of different experiments, a lot of people you will meet, and, a lot of different, you can really build your curve. I have 5 publications. I worked 5 years. I have 5 publications on my name. Doesn't necessarily mean that, you have to be the co-author, but you definitely have the opportunity to collaborate. So we had one of the studies which was collaborated with Oxford University, and they came down. So it's a lot of interaction with people across. You will get to read a lot of literature. It's quite a lot of fun. So I would definitely say that, just because it's research, don't be scared of it. I guess that was my impression too. I wasn't sure when somebody says you're doing research,
All right. Okay. So we have another question from Parishi. She had asked initially as to what basic qualification is needed for registering for STEM and guidance on process of admission. And she just mentioned, particularly, she was talking about engineering or technology is what she was asking about.
Yes. So I believe that you need to, at least in India, you need to take the JEE. That's what is the requirement to go into the engineering field. And the advanced JEE for, I believe, the IITs and stuff. Of course, if you don't end up getting into, good grades in the JEE, and you don't end up pursuing, if you're asking which of the engineering, then computer science is my top recommendation. After that, if you like bio, then a bioengineering or a biomedical is definitely in the go. But computer science is by far my top recommendation, just because the applications of it, whether it being data sciences or any of the computational fields, is very big for the next foreseeable. Even something like a business analytics needs computer science or data science, because the base of analyzing a huge amount of data, right? If you have 20 lakh points, how are you going to analyze this data and make a good business decision is based on analytics. So analytics is completely requiring a base of computer science as a knowledge. And so basically programming languages as a knowledge. If you don't get into, we have a lot of students who've done a BSc in mathematics, a BSc in physics or chemistry. That's fine, as long as on the side you can pursue some sort of coding, maybe Python and R, which is used widely in bio also. R is a GUI environment, and a lot of other languages which may be useful to you to help you maybe secure a better master's program or get you into a good industry placement.
Okay, all right. Now, Afra has asked, what is the difference between doing BSc Biomedical Sciences and BE Biomedical Engineering?
So, Ashna, sadly, there is not, in India, it's considered that engineering holds a little bit more value than the sciences. If the goal is to do masters and research, in my mind, there is not that much of difference. The only thing is that biomedical sciences does not have a lot of engineering components. So in biomedical engineering, you're forced to do maths, and you're forced to do microcontrollers and things which help you a bit in instrumentation. So there's biomedical instrumentation, while biomedical sciences is purely more research, like getting into the kind of things I was talking about, biomaterials, and it's more research driven. And in my mind, if in the broad career prospect, it's not that different. But yeah, biomedical engineering will give you a lot of engineering subjects, which engineering courses which you'll have to do, which might be a little better because it keeps both the fields open to you.
Okay, all right. Then Parishi has asked a follow-up question. Can a student who has chosen PCM for class 11 and 12 go for bioengineering?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
Perfect.
It's an engineering discipline, so giving the JEE is absolutely will get you there.
All right. And Elise has another question. What software do you use while designing biomedical equipment?
So I actually haven't designed any biomedical equipment, so I'm not probably the best person. As I mentioned, I moved from biomedical engineering to biotech as a career. So I'm not updated with the best this. I know they use a lot of CAD for design, and that's a very basic software which is used. But I'm literally not aware of. But I know that there are a lot of design softwares. ANSYS, I think, is one of them. ANSYS, and if you just do a search, you should be able to see, because it depends on what kind of biomechanics is a different software, and biomaterial design has a different software. So I'm not sure what is the exact software you'd be using depending on what kind of job you want to do.
All right. So Parishi has asked, where did you study your engineering post-entrance test?
So I didn't have a post-entrance test when I gave my engineering, and luckily it was just PCMB, PCM, right from my 12th, and I did my education at Thadomal Shahani Engineering College in Bangalore.
Okay.
From the University of Mumbai umbrella. Yeah.
Of course. Ishita has asked, would you recommend going abroad for research or in India?
If you want my answer as an absolute honest counselor, then I would say research abroad is definitely go, especially the US, and second ranking probably the UK, and then maybe the European Union. But research in US, they spend a phenomenal amount of money on it, and it is literally cutting edge. I've seen it. I've used a sequencing machine. It's very thrilling. But there is a lot of, you hear a lot of people outsourcing their work in India, and Bangalore being a kind of biotech hub, you will see a lot of companies catering to huge amount of pharma biotech companies in Bangalore. So there is a lot of research going on there too. Of course, there are very good institutes in India which do research, but if you, I would definitely recommend at least experiencing it if you can.
Of course. Now, Alize has asked what are the best universities, and I believe she is talking about biomedical engineering.
Um, you mean here or abroad? I'm sorry.
I think she's asking about abroad.
So
Abroad,
John
yeah.
Hopkins
She
is
just
one of
confirmed.
the, yeah,
Abroad.
John Hopkins is one of the top universities. CMU offers a very good course. The UCs, that's the University of California Systems, offer a very good biomedical course. Cornell offers a very good biomedical course. Um, uh, I believe a lot of innovation in biomed happens in and around the pharma industry. So Boston being a biotech hub, and San Francisco or San Diego being bio hubs. Texas
Yeah.
maybe a little, are the universities which you should definitely target to get into the biomedical field.
Okay, great. Parishi has asked for computer engineering. Which universities do you recommend?
Again,
Abroad or India? I think
clarify.
she's talking about India because her last question was which entrance test.
Sure. So computer engineering in any of the University of Mumbai, DJ Sanghvi hai, Thadomal is there, Shine Ankar is there. I believe KJ Soma has gone. They are introducing their own Somaya University this year. So you can check that out. They are also pretty good, good school. NMIMS is one of the universities which offer this. You can do it, but be very about, so make sure that no matter what, which of the colleges you do it from, if it's a University of Mumbai affiliate, of course, VJTI is there, but they are autonomous. So is UDCity, which are autonomous. Any of the other institutes are also fine, but I would say more than the institutes or the college, make sure getting a good GPA, which is out of 10 to nowadays, and I would recommend that getting a 8.5 on 10 through each semester is more important.
Ma'am, we can't hear you anymore. Hello?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah, it's better now. Can you just repeat what you were saying? We lost you at NMIMS. The network connection is really bad.
Yeah, ma'am, I saw any of the university of affiliates, Swami Vivekanand is there, or any of the universities are fine. My recommendation is get a good GPA through all 8 semesters. So get a 8.5 on 10. I think that would help you more than having a name. Doesn't matter which college you end up studying. I believe that if you have the right education, but if you have a good, great GPA with, of course, no backlogs, then that would help you a lot more in your career.
Okay, that's great. So now Afra has asked, would you suggest pursuing undergraduate degree in India or abroad? You just answered the question, but yeah, you can elaborate.
I'm overseas education counselor, so I'm not biased. It depends on your budget, of course, your parents. But if you do have the opportunity to pursue it abroad, I would definitely recommend it. The kind of interdisciplinary education you get to do. That means, you're not tied to the sciences or commerce. You can do a major in something, a minor in something else, and have a more cross field. So I have a student who's studying a bachelor's in speech sciences. Okay. She offered a major in linguistics, and she'll still be doing science courses. So she has psychology, she has the sciences, and it's a very mixed degree, which unfortunately is not offered here. And so if you have the means and the capability and, of course, the inclination, then I would definitely recommend go there, get some experience. You can always come back and do whatever you wish to, out back here. Like me, why not? And otherwise, if not, I would say just make sure you know which career you are selecting. As I mentioned previously, figure out the concentration you wish to do and walk backwards, and make sure you take the right course out here.
Okay, perfect. And Parishi has asked any tips to score well in an entrance test.
So
not very ideal question, but you can just give some general
Yeah.
tips.
I believe that a lot of people count tension stress as the number of hours they put in, or what we've seen in terms of the SAT or the GRE or the GMAT, which we definitely cater to a lot more because we have a lot of students going abroad. What we see is that sectional practice and practice is where we've seen huge improvements in score. So, a lot of people give the full end test and can't figure out where they're going wrong. So maybe doing sectional practice and practicing on that part, which is probably your weakest, this might be the best way to go about for nutrition.
Okay, all right. I don't think we have any other questions. We'll just wait for another 10
Sure.
seconds. You explained everything so
Yes,
nicely. We
sure.
are very grateful that you
Thank
spend
you very
some
much.
of your precious time with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure being here and talking to you guys.